I'm just not sure how we got from, first and foremost, how I read the Gospels. Secondly, I'm watching this, and I'm like, I don't see the connection. I don't see how this guy became that guy. Welcome to the Lionz Den, episode 44. My name's Eddy.
This is Brad.
And this is Alex.
So, actually, we missed a couple different weeks, different stuff going on, and I kind of waited to put up content because I knew it was going to be a couple weeks. But we did miss a special occasion. Do you guys know what it was?
Easter.
Typical guys. Anniversary.
Which is Easter, by the way, so it's half correct. Easter was our first episode.
Yeah, it was our 1 year anniversary of having the YouTube and podcast. Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
That is nuts. 12 months of doing this.
So, kind of leading up to it, we talked a little bit about it. Easter is always pretty solid time for me. I get pretty grounded in my faith. You know, just things kind of slow down, can get a kind of a better grasp of what's going on in life and everything, my day-to-day stuff. So happens to be, and we'll actually get more into it in the next podcast, but it was a pretty trying time for me. Especially, it was weird the 2 weeks before it, I wasn't at my best. So, to say the least. So I spent pretty much every day screaming at somebody for the 2 weeks lead up to it over something. So yeah, it was pretty challenging. And then usually on Good Friday, I watched The Passion, which I started. I got like 45 minutes into it, and there had been a show that I heard about called The Chosen, which is on Peacock Plus, and I actually found out it was on Amazon. Anyways, usually like when Christian-based stuff comes out, you'll get, love it, hate it. Kind of get some varying degrees of people loving it and hating it. It seemed to be pretty universally liked, which shocked me.
Yeah.
So anyways, kind of had it my queue for, it's probably been a good 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Not sure because it was my mental state or what have you. Just, it was one of those things. Yeah, I got to watch that. But, I was watching a bunch of other stuff and just couldn't, for whatever reason, couldn't sit down and start tuning into it. So anyways, I was like, The Passion, especially with my mood, not sure if it was like the best combination in that moment. Like I was just kind of getting more ticked off. So I was like, you know what? Let me check out an episode of this. Let me step away from this for a moment.
Call an audible.
Yeah, because, the whole point of that is just kind of getting grounded. Every time I watch The Passion of the Christ, just gives me good grounding for what it's all about. What Jesus went through, circumstances around it, usually humbles me pretty quickly and kind of grounds me pretty quickly. And it was kind of having a little bit of an opposite effect of, I was just getting pissed and watching what he was going through was just making me madder. And, you have fantasy ideas of being Rambo and, busting out the M60 and shooting everybody that you could see in the area. And I was like, this is not mentally where I want to be at.
You're talking about like Jesus being like Rambo? Like a
no,
Rambo
me
Jesus?
Personally.
Oh.
Like you play these superhero fantasies in your mind.
Yeah.
Like if I was there, I would be, slicing people up. And it was just not healthy. It was not at all mentally where I wanted to be at. So anyways, I was like, let me check this out. And it was a little bit before midnight. I want to say it was like 11. Might have been about 11. And I got 15 minutes in, bawling. Bawling, crying. And so I was like 11:30. I don't think I stopped crying until about 5 o'clock in the morning and probably 6 episodes in. And, obviously a lot of things have been going on. I was like on the cusp. Mm-hmm. But did you see Batman? I know you're not a movie guy. You've seen Batman.
Which version? Michael Keaton?
Batman. No, Dark Knight.
No.
Oh, with Christian Bale? You've never seen one with Christian Bale?
No. Joker.
Bro, climb out from under that rock.
Yeah, so we're just going to stop this podcast right now. So just for you guys
Thank you guys for tuning in.
You asked me, hey, have you seen this? No.
But this is different.
No,
and Christian Bale and Heath Ledger.
Yeah, I mean, Brad's not a big movie guy, so, I'm not surprised, but I would think, a caveman probably seen that, but Brad didn't, but that's okay.
I got things to do.
So, with certain iconic things, you just have an idea in your head of what that should look like. And, it's very, very few where it kind of matches it. And that was a movie, like, as soon as Heath Ledger pops on as a Joker, you're like, oh, they got this right.
Oh, yeah.
This is on point. Mm-hmm. This is going to be incredible. Mm-hmm. Like, you just kind of felt it that you were in for a great ride. Mm-hmm. I think that's what emotionally hit me with the Chosen series is, like, as soon as Jesus pops on, you're like, ooh, they got this right.
Okay.
The depiction of him, how he comes across. I've never seen it done like this, and it's kind of catch people up, and I cannot recommend highly enough watching it, especially if you're really new to faith and don't know a lot about Jesus. It's an incredible place to start because it's very unique in what it's presenting you. So in the past, most things we've seen, as for example, Passion of Christ, stuff like that, you get a real little bit about, kind of his ministry.
Yep.
Cuts pretty much to the blood and guts of it, the passion, resurrection, that stuff. You don't get a lot of what he was doing before that. And this is all about that period of time. So there's 3 seasons. 2 seasons are up. Third is up through I think they have their own app. So you can watch through them. I haven't gotten that far yet, but I'm 2 seasons in, and it's all just his teachings and him. But it's really how they show him is you're like, wow, they got this right. He's just beautiful in it, and I think that's what made me start crying immediately because I was like, this guy's beautiful. Like, I love it. I love how they're showing him, and it was so counter to where my head was at. Mm-hmm. Like, I was feeling so aggressive and angry and pissed. As soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, I'm sorry, I got it. Mm-hmm. This is who you are. Okay, this is what Easter's about. This is what you're about. This is what our faith is about. This is what our belief in you is about. And it did just such an incredible job about it. And I say that because he's smiling constantly, laughing constantly. He's doing his miracles, and I don't want to delve too far into it, but just the perspective of what you get when you read the Gospels. So, all of us, Brad doesn't watch a lot of movies, but, you read a book and then you see the movie. And what's beautiful about reading a book is it's kind of your own imagery. You're kind of creating that movie as you're reading it. And then when the movie comes out, or if it comes out, it either kind of matches it or adds to it, kind of goes in a way that you didn't, or is nowhere near what you had in your mind, which is the vast majority of times. Mm-hmm. This was done in a way that in my heart I knew was accurate, but the imagery of it was just done on such another level that I just have never seen before. More his kindness, more his general take on things, and the reason why we're talking about it, besides you have to watch it, I cannot recommend it enough, but just how he's coming across throughout this entire series, you're just like, okay, so how did we go from that to this? All right, so this is Jesus. We're Christians, so we're followers of this guy, and then this is where we're at. And it will blow your mind. Mm-hmm. That's why I cannot, encourage enough if you're, just tipping your pinky toe in, any Christianity or, religion period, or even just for the sake of learning about Jesus, that is definitely the source to go to. Mm-hmm. Because just kind of filling in, even for me personally, like when I read the gospel, I remember very young reading the gospels and, reading about some of the miracles he acted, so blind person seeing, handicapped walking. Mm-hmm. I was always kind of like, that's super cool, but there's a lot of people like that. So what about them? Mm-hmm. So you healed somebody who could walk. That's super awesome for that guy. Mm-hmm. But what about, the 50, 60, 70, hundreds of others that are in that area? How come you're not helping them out?
Right.
Now, I get that that's not why he was here. Jesus wasn't here to heal everybody. I know that there's a reason why he's doing that. It does a very, very good job of depicting that, of him knowing that him saying what he was saying, as powerful and as much weight as that carried, with the miracles tied to it, is what sends it to the next level.
Yeah, it's like the meat and potatoes. It sounds like it's like an explanation of the middle of what actually happened, of what was going on.
Right.
Because, I've seen The Passion of the Christ, and it's a straight, highlight reel is probably the wrong word, but it gets the point across. It's kind of like a highlight reel of what the Dolores Passion of the Christ was, mm-hmm. And it shows you those extremes. And the little bit you have talked to me about the show, it sounds like it kind of breaks it down more of, it shows you the events and the things that happen leading up to those or in between those, the stuff you really don't hear about.
For sure. Yeah, like like anytime you're reading something, you're kind of getting quick tidbits of it. So it doesn't matter if you're reading, John or Luke or whatever, you're reading through that stuff, and 3 pages, all kinds of incredible things happened. But you're reading it, so it's 15, 20 minutes, mm-hmm. And he already healed 4 people and made a blind person see and created water into wine, which is all super incredible. But just the timing of reading it, it's not hitting you in the mouth the way it is when you're watching this, and each one of those events is, each episode I want to say is probably about 45 minutes, maybe an hour.
It's a long episode too. When you were telling me about it, you said it's like 16 episodes a season too, isn't it? Or like 12 or something like that?
I think the first year I want to say is 8. The next one is 9. I'm assuming the following season is the same.
Got it.
And I, since watching it, and I'm assuming it gained a lot of popularity. So now the creator pops on now and again and talking about that, the goal. It started crowdfunded, I want to say. Yeah, I want to say that was self-funded, when it originally came out.
It's a bold play. Putting anything out about religion, we talked about the Super Bowl commercial, super, super, super bold. But to go to a TV series with it, because a movie's already, a pretty big move, but then you go to a TV series, that's a lot of content to fill about stories that presumably have been told how many times over again.
For sure.
So, it's kind of brilliant going to the stuff that's not talked about, kind of explaining the lead up, the build up, probably conversations and stuff that he's having on a daily basis, so you can understand him better, his perspective. It's definitely something I want to check out.
Well, and I'll say, anytime you get into like a time period stuff, that's big money.
Absolutely.
It's not like you just move into a house and shoot it. You're everything that's there, you're recreating.
Yep.
So, I'm sure it's extremely expensive to make. Again, what I found really, really interesting about it is how much it was embraced in the Christian community. After seeing it, it shocks me even more. And I say that more because how joyful he is. And it's not to say that...
So messed up.
And it really is. It's not to say that there's not weight in it, because there's tons of weight in it.
Yeah.
It's just, again, in my soul, like in how I see Jesus, it's him. Even after him performing miracles, he's very quick to, you're welcome, hug, have a great life. Mm-hmm. It's not waiting for them to bow to him and forever be grateful and drop to your knees and thank my Father for my majesty because you were a blind bastard before me. Like, it was none of that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I almost feel like it was done for almost just like credibility. I am who I say I am. Here's what I can do, kind of thing. Not in the sense of I'm doing it for power reasons, but I'm just doing it to show you I am who I claim to be.
And I think you're 100%. And I think it's a lot of different levels. For number one was for sure the credibility of it. And then like we talked about, me saying I'm such and such is one thing, even with all the power. Because again, what it does a really good job of is you feel it. So the actor that's playing him is a rock star. And again, I'm sure there's a lot of weight to that. So if I'm standing, I think we had a podcast, wasn't it? What if God was one of us?
Yes.
So, if that happens in real life, what comes across to you? And we even talked about it the last one, like with Pontius Pilate. Are you like, ooh, something's different about this guy? You know what I mean? Do you feel it like on a soul level?
Right.
And I'm sure you do. I think that the miracles were the exclamation point on that, this is what I can do. I'm not bullshitting.
Right.
I'm the real deal. And this is the way to it. That's not to take away that he didn't have compassion and he didn't want to help and all those things. But like I said, if we're being honest about it, he could have spent his 33 years. And it does actually in this show that to a point where there's quite a line, of people with different maladies waiting for him. And he's up all night doing it. You would think that would have been every day of his life. Literally, that's all he's doing all day long. And that obviously wasn't the sole reason for him being here. But again, even that, it does a really good job of showing him, he's exhausted after this, he's tired, but still very lively about doing it. It's incredible. I cannot just say how great it is to see this type of portrayal of Jesus. It's about time. In The Passion, there was some really great roles. Like the stuff that I love the most about The Passion, what I feel like Mel Gibson, like him or not, did a very good job of, is he kind of he sandwiches the good with the bad. So you have a lot of the really grimy, horrible things that are happening to him. And then you have, and the best way I could describe this, you've seen The Passion, right? Oh, sweet baby Jesus in a manger.
He didn't see the Heath Ledger as the Joker. He did
not
not see The Passion.
Jesus is before Batman, but you definitely need to watch that.
Jesus. That should be the title, Jesus Before Batman. T-shirt.
There is.
Sorry, I can't.
You don't have your iPad to make that.
That's why I had to say it.
So there's a point in it where he's creating the modern table, Jesus, and he's very playful with his mom, and it's just beautiful, and he's smiling and very charming, and what you would think Jesus is, and it sandwiches that because he's kind of looking back on those times as we're watching, all the different things going on with them. That moment is the vast majority of this series.
Got it.
So you see a lot of that Jesus.
And a lot less of the,
at
least so far.
To this point, none of that. Now, again, it's not making light of anything. He's very aware of what's going on. He's very aware of what's going to happen. It shows him kind of navigating on how he wants to do that and how far he wants people to know. Because honestly, a lot of it is the bickering amongst the disciples. Which is super interesting, and I feel is probably super realistic. Because if you think about it, you're hanging out with the Savior. So you want to be the guy, and they're all kind of clamoring for that, for his attention, and kind of they're standing with him. And it's a lot of that. There's a lot of bickering between them of all kind of trying to gain favor with Jesus.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Probably super realistic, too.
And that's what I mean. So even for us at this point, the disciples are all saints. They've kind of gotten to that upper echelon level of how we think about them, and we forget that, we're freaking fishermen. And
there was one point there like, hey, this dude said he's about to make this guy see again, and I think he's full of shit.
Yes. Yeah. We forget that. And, even with Peter and his brother, I mean, that's how they got him right away, was bringing all the fish in the boat.
Right.
But we don't know. And to be clear, I'm not sure where they're getting some of the stuff. And it does kind of open up that, this is taken largely from the Gospels. They're using creative liberty with some stuff, but it kind of shows what was going on with Peter before that happened. What was going on with Peter and his brother before that happened. What was going on with this guy before that happened. It's unbelievable. But again, besides recommending watching it and reviewing it for you, the real reason why I wanted to talk about it is, why do you guys think that we don't see Jesus in that light vast majority of times? So like when you think of Jesus, is it happy Jesus, or is it I'm going through some shit Jesus, or is it baby Jesus? What do you get in your mind's eye?
So for me, in my path to trying to figure out, and I've talked about it before, trying to figure out religion, I kind of came from that, just being observant in a, very like Catholic, Roman Catholic kind of setting, where it is kind of like, you got to do it this way, or you're going to get punished. And that didn't always make sense to me. And I kind of found more of a Christian church where it's kind of like, man, come as you are. Like, Jesus wants everybody to be happy. And that was kind of like my first tick of like, well, I like that Jesus.
Right.
Of like, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to, for me, I had to kind of like switch my brain from what I was kind of taught growing up, or around growing up, to, this makes more sense. So when I think of Jesus, it is more of happy teachings, wanting to share knowledge with people, but it wasn't always that way.
Sure. Alex?
I honestly was going to say earlier that I'm kind of intrigued by it. I'm kind of intrigued by the timing of everything, like the acceptance of it being in the Super Bowl commercial, seeing a TV series starting to take off, because that's super. It opens, especially the Catholic Church, up to be super, super vulnerable, which is something they're not okay with. So, and I think with religion, we do such a good job of putting out what the message we want, and it has to be so by the book and so black and white that what you've told me about the show sounds like there's but there is creative liberty. So there's interpretation about what they think, or this creator thought was going on at that time.
For sure.
Which is something you don't ever see.
No, I mean, agreed. And even with the Roman Catholic Church, I mean, Pope Francis is the shit. He is not that dude. He is not the This is, previous Pope was very much that
Right.
dude.
Well, and that was what I was going to say is I'm curious to see if we're starting to see reap those rewards of the work that he's been putting in since he's been kind of doing his thing.
Well, what I will say is maybe like our show, the fringe people love it. Mm-hmm. So the people that are, either new to Roman Catholicism or new to religion, they love Pope Francis. Your traditionalists are not a fan. And I can say that because I attend Latin Mass. I go to a pretty traditional church.
Did you go for Easter?
I did.
Yeah.
4 hours long.
Yeah.
That shit was 4 hours long. I love you, Jesus, so much, but I don't know if I need 4 hours of Latin Mass.
Wow.
And it's pitch black other than a candle. And you're holding it in your hand, those that check out the YouTube. So one, you start outside and, they start a fire. And I wish I could tell you the significance. I'm not sure. I mean, for sure there was, different scents going on. And there's no doubt in my mind there's great significance to it. But the church is black because when you go to Latin Mass, everything is, and it's kind of what we're talking about. So any symbolism, any statues you have, any depictions of Christ, or actually anybody, Mary, is all covered.
Okay.
And it's like that way through Lent. And then Easter, that all comes off. So it's kind of like the celebration of him coming out. Now, I dig that. It's beautiful. It didn't really dawn on me until watching The Chosen that it's kind of what I'm talking about, right? So, why is everything covered? I get it. It's kind of the symbolism of, the death and the rebirth and, the trial of that. But after watching this, I'm kind of like, is that how he wants to be remembered? Is that how Jesus wants to be known? Does he want it to be? And that's why I kind of asked what you guys see, for your personal Jesus, because I've always felt that love. I've always felt that connection. So if I'm doing some dumb shit, it's not Jesus sitting in the corner tisk-tisking me like, no. Mm-hmm. It's open arms, love. Not that it's not, hey, you're screwing up, but kind of like a big brother who loves you.
Right.
So he's going to set your shit straight, but it's not going to be taking a paddle to you or beating the shit out of you because you did wrong.
Right.
What I find so interesting is culturally in the general public, that's the Jesus I think that most people think of.
Well, that's the Jesus that's put out there.
Yeah, and like I guess that's my question is I'm not sure where the hell that came from. I don't get that at all. So I've never gotten that from reading the Gospels, number one.
I think it's like association with so a lot of people that take people that go to school for like a religious school. So you go to like our area would be Bennett, and then like Montini, things like that. So uniform, very strict as far as what you wear, what you're learning, what classes you have to take. And I think it just sets the precedence of just old style structure, black and white. And everything with religion, I mean, I shouldn't say this because I work for Harley Davidson, but like they're doing a really bad job of adapting with the times. Like not saying you have to adapt the Catholic Church, but maybe how you address the people that need the Catholic Church. And going back to talking about, Pope Francis, I think that's one thing that we're starting to see. Like you asked me, why now? So why now are we seeing something like this come out? I think because people are starting to get open to it. I think because the world is finally looking around and enough people are going, holy cow, we're screwed. Maybe, just maybe, people are starting to look.
The only thing is, I don't know if they are.
Well, they must be, because there's smart enough people out there putting stuff out at a time where most people wouldn't, and it's being captured. So people have to be looking.
I mean, like I said, it started as
Super Bowl
I'm not
commercial.
sure if it was a Kickstarter or I forgot what the other one's called, but basically you're self-funded. I'm pretty sure it's not self-funded anymore. So there's money backing it now.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're certainly right. I mean, it obviously captured an audience.
Somebody's paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, people
Somebody is.
are watching it, you know, but everything you're saying, I guess that's my whole point. And even, I mean, both my parents went to Catholic school. I heard stories of them getting the shit beaten out of them.
It sounds
and
terrible.
Rulers and all
Rulers
that. And I
across
guess
the knuckles
that's, the rulers, all
Yeah.
that stuff. We've seen the movies where, you know, they're holding books out straight for.
a nun whooping your booty.
I
No,
guess
thanks.
I don't know where the hell that came from, I guess is my point. I'm just not sure how we got from, first and foremost, how I read the Gospels. Secondly, I'm watching this, and I'm like, I don't see the connection. I don't see how this guy became that guy.
You're missing
as far as our perspective.
You're missing the biggest link. Us, human beings. That's why.
No, I get it. I know we could be assholes, but there's a middle ground.
Yeah, you're right.
Like we're talking complete polar opposites of who this guy is.
And we talked about it before early on. It was one of the first podcasts. Like we talked about how, you know, it kind of became this like, you know, Jesus is watching. It kind of became this like parental punishment to the kids, or just kind of, whether it be the nuns and the rulers or whatever, it just kind of morphed into this thing where religion kind of had this dark connotation to it. And what's interesting is really up until now, nobody's really put a tangible piece of media out there other than the Bible that kind of is like, Jesus is cool, man. You know, like really.
Well, and I mean, Pope Francis has been rocking it since he's been Pope. I mean, he's been the dude that's like, hey, man, you're supposed to be wearing this fancy shit. Look at this gold lame, pimped out Pope cape. You know, you're supposed to be rocking this. He's like, I'm not wearing that shit.
Yeah.
You know, we're supposed to be helping people. Like, that cape could be feeding, you know, a couple hundred kids.
Right.
I'm not messing with that.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right. Well, that sucks because somebody made this
Right.
and the shit looks cool as hell in
It
pictures.
was in the budget. We hit budget.
Let's go out to the Pope Mobile.
I'm gonna-
It's pimped out. You know, it's super sexy. It's what it's a real thing.
I know,
The
I
Pope
know
Mobile
it
is a real
is.
thing, and it's
Jesus
pimped
before
out.
Batman.
Like what was Pimp My
Exhibit.
Ride? Was that the old
Yeah,
show?
was that Exhibit?
Exhibit. There you go.
You know?
Pimp My Ride. Exhibit came out.
Right.
Look at Pope. I got widescreen TV in there.
Spinners and-
you know, this comes out and this is the shit. And he's like, I'm not going out in that shit. What don't you understand? I'm not being caught dead in that thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, we made it. You know, this is showing everybody that you're the shit. And he's like, it ain't showing shit. I'm not doing it.
Right.
What don't you understand? You better bring out the Ford Pinto because that's what I'm rocking. And I mean,
The Pinto.
this is what's been ticking traditionalists off about him since the word go, you know, since he came in. Because we have to keep in mind, he's coming in after Pope, Benedict, messing his
The last one.
name up, yes. Who was a very, very big traditionalist.
Complete opposite of this.
Polar opposite.
Well, and I think it's sound weird. It's a weird analogy, but I see it because I'm in the trades. I do a lot of service at people's houses. There's a kind of this influx of younger families, you know, maybe moving out of the city, getting into houses, their first home. They kind of grew up with parents that wanted to protect them, so they didn't really do a lot around the house. They then lived in apartment buildings and whatnot in the city, so they didn't have to do anything around the house. Well, now they have a house of their own, and for lack of a better term, they don't know shit, you know? So they're grasping for information on how to, you know, do simple tasks around the house. And as odd as it sounds, I think because of the state of the world, like you kind of touched on, Alex, I think people are slowly grasping at faith and finding that avenue. And maybe things like the show you're talking about, what the Pope is doing now, it's finding, it may not be talked about publicly a lot, but kind of behind the curtain, there's a little movement going there. So.
No, and again, what we were talking about, I mean, statistically speaking, church numbers are way down. People's belief in God is actually going up, but church numbers are way down. I mean, Jesus is already automatically going to be tied into that, you know, with any Christianity. I mean, as JC, that's our guy. And you nailed it on the head when you were talking about the control. That's really what this is all about at the end of the day, was control. I don't have a problem with that. Every one of us at this table has used violence as a means of control. I shouldn't say I don't have a problem with it. I get it. Never have I claimed Jesus to do that shit.
Right.
In fact, I've said the polar opposite, that he is not down with this at all. But I'm still going to do it. And Jesus, forgive me for this. I'm not as strong. I'm not as powerful. I'm not as understanding. I mean, obviously, I'm not shit to you. But, you know, my point is, I don't understand why you have a hard time setting those differences. So this is Jesus Christ. This is his acts. This is what he did. This is what the Gospels are. This is me being an asshole. Because I think you're an asshole, so I have to be a bigger asshole in order to control you, because you're an animal. And this is what I have to do to secure that. Right, wrong, indifferent.
It is what it is.
You know, I
call it what it is.
Not saying that works, because we know that it really doesn't. But I could understand saying that. Why you got to bring my guy JC into it? You know, why do you got to dirty up him and sully him up, where he's this overbearing, gotcha bitch guy, can't do this, can't do that. Oh my God, you did this, you're going to hell type of guy. And that's not saying that, you know, there's no repercussions with Jesus. He talks about it constantly throughout the Gospels. He's talking about it in the series. Nobody's here saying that, hey, you could do whatever hell you want, it's okay. You know, nor did Jesus ever make that claim. It's how to talk about it and how you go about it and how you approach somebody about it that makes all the difference in the world.
And that's how you teach it.
For sure.
You didn't teach it by teaching through repercussions.
For sure.
I mean, that's why you talk about all the miracles and you don't hear about all the, I mean, I think that's why Jesus didn't come in as a king. It wasn't from a place of power. It was from a place of passion, a place of compassion. So I think that's why you see like all the miracles you see. I mean, I think it's pretty symbolic of getting sight, you know, what faith can show you. You know, I mean, I just think it's the way everything went about wasn't from a place of fear. That's where we came in. I mean, that's where humans put our twist on it, is because we know what fear does. I mean,
no doubt about it.
You had a society that, I mean, we could spend hours about what that looked like just in the everyday. I mean, you had racial things going on, so it's not hard to understand why you give old school, and forgive me, but old school white people a building with a church behind them and the ability to control how things are run. And 90% of the time, churches ran towns. So if you were in charge of the church, you were in charge of the town. And misery needs company, and power is the devil. You know, so I mean, that's what makes us human.
And again, I completely understand all that. The problem with that is, there's a book that's been around for a while.
It's called the Holy Bible.
It's called the Holy Bible that says in it, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
So,
that's
and again, I mean, there's no deliberation about it. It said, there's in there, you know, what's up with the tax collector, dude? This guy sucks. He can't hang with us. And he's going to hang. Why are you helping these invalids? Why are you helping these people with leprosy? Why did you help that girl that was a hooker? Why are you doing this? I'm not here for you. I'm here for the sick. I'm not here for the righteous. I'm here for the sick. That's why I'm here. You can't twist that. I guess that's the part I don't understand is how this bullshit got sold for this long period of time, and nobody's like, I read that shit, and you're full of it. There's none of that in there. I guess I don't understand why we're so willing to fall in line. And I mean, that's what the Lionz Den has always been about, is rebellion to that, is setting your own standard, being your own lion, starting your own pride, not being a follower, being a leader. I just don't understand why we're so quick to fall in line to that. I understand why we want to. I'll give you an example with everything that kind of been going on. My mom's had a lot of stuff going on, and my mom loves me to death. She's ride or die for me. Because of that, she's always worried about me. So every conversation is, Eddy, is this going on? Is that going on? Hey, did you take care of this? You take care of that? And I got some real shit going on. And there's particular ones you just won't let go. And it's every conversation it gets. And it has to do with money in the long run. I'm finally to a point where things are getting better, could breathe again, business is coming up again, and of course she has to mention it. And I'm like, okay, I heard you the first 36 times. End of story, temper got up. Wasn't mean, but definitely was volatile. She's having surgery tomorrow. And, got more hostile than was necessary. Made my point. I don't need to hear about this every time we talk. I get it. I understand your concern. I know you love me. I know you're worried. But I don't need to hear this shit every time we talk. I got off the phone. My mom was like, sorry, I didn't mean to. I felt like shit. Nothing about that made me feel good about it. Because again, I know what the intent is. And I'm certainly not saying that I need to hear it every single time we talk. And my mom understands that. Sure. But that's kind of what I'm talking about is, I called her up on the way home and I'm like, I'm sorry, I was way out of line. She's like, no, you're 100% right. I was like, no, I wasn't. So yes, my point was right. The way I went about it and the way I said it was completely off base. There was no reason for me to go there with it. And it's kind of my point to all of this is, there's ways of giving messages and speaking truth without being a complete and utter asshat about it. And Jesus was never an asshat about anything. And, and again, watching this series, you're like, and, the challenge I give to anybody that's listening to that, and I would love to hear it in the comments, which we probably won't, but, watch that and not get ticked off.
Yeah.
Watch that and not be like, wait, who the hell are you guys talking about? I don't know who you're talking about, because that's not it's not this dude. It's like somebody talking about your best friend and, saying nothing but utter and complete lies. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, I seen him. And you're like, no, you didn't, because he's nothing like that. What are you talking about? So I'd be really curious to see how it makes people feel watching it. Sure. Now, again, for me, it was very humbling. I mean, I can't remember. I think the last time I cried that hard is when my dog passed. Oh. Like, it was just, in fact, Maggie got up and was like, and my wife has maybe seen me cry once or twice as long as I've known her. She was like, are you still crying? And I was like, I'm not crying. And I was like, yeah, this shit is incredible. Like, I wasn't even, like, I had the first guy thing. I'm like, this is unbelievable. This is amazing. I mean, I watched 2 seasons in like 2 days. So, do the math on that. It's like 16, 17 hours that I watched. Wow. And I can't wait to watch it again and again. And I can't wait to talk about it with you guys and other people to see it. It was just it felt so great to see my Lord, my Savior, shown for who he is and what he really is about, and shut the rest of these fools up. My ask from us, especially anybody who rocks Lionz Den, reps Lionz Den, start speaking up. You got to start letting people know you're full of shit. What you're saying is bullshit. And I don't care if I told my priest he's full of shit.
I remember that.
I don't have any problem with that. You're on some bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first, very sweet, good man. I feel he has every good intention. But I was like, hey, bro, I know you went to school for this for like 8 years. You might need to want to pick that book up again, because I think you somewhere, and again, I see that a lot with traditionalism, like Latin Mass and stuff like that, where we're so caught up, and I have all the respect in the world. It's like when I go to church, they're still wearing the babushkas. They're not called babushkas.
They're definitely not called babushkas.
I just love the word. But they're rocking the shawls, like old timey. That's beautiful. I have all the respect in the world for that. And I respect any woman who's saying, because, there's a lot of counter to that. Like, you're a woman, you don't need to wear that shit. Why do you got to hide yourself? Guys ain't wearing that bullshit. So I respect a woman that still says, I'm all that, and I still want to, show that respect to my God, to Jesus. I still believe in that. So I get a lot of the traditionalism. That's why I go to it. But you don't have to be angry God all the freaking time. You don't have to have, scolding Jesus sitting in the corner. Like, instead of him being on the cross, he should be like, no.
Yeah.
Like, constantly telling you, don't do this, don't do that.
Mutombo.
Yeah.
I'm Mutombo your thoughts. Boom.
Right. No. So, Buddhism has, a lot of people don't, under their different incarnations, you see like Happy Buddha. So, you go like Japanese restaurant or something and they got big smiling. They got all that. All we have is Jesus on the cross. Like, there's no happy Jesus or, crying Jesus or any of these,
Which was really only a small part of that story, was him on the cross.
For sure. Super. Now, of course, super significant.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not his whole life story. I mean, that was, again, and we just passed Easter, that is all about, I'm willing to die for this. I'm willing to sacrifice myself for you, and make no mistake about it. You're not keeping me down. So I'm going to be back, and I'm back. And because love can't die. But he lived a life of that, before that. And, why aren't we talking about that more? Why aren't we depicting that more? Why aren't we showing that more?
Right.
So anyways, that's my rant. Definitely check it out. Again, it's called The Chosen. I know for sure it's on Amazon and Peacock. It's actually, it does have an app where I think you watch all of them, and I'm pretty positive it's free. So if you don't have Amazon or Peacock Plus, I'm pretty sure it's free on their app, which the app is The Chosen. So if there's anything else you guys want to add?
No, I'm excited to check it out. We'll have to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Jesus wasn't an asshat shirt coming to a retailer.
Yes.
Soon, maybe?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
Jesus before Batman.
Jesus before Batman.
Yep.
Little greater symbol.
I like
We'll
it.
work on it.
So we're happy to be back. Thank you all you guys for being patient with us, and we'll check you on the next one.
Yep. Thank you.